Okay, welcome everyone. Great to see you guys. One second, let me turn on my thing here. What was that, Sima?
So I have a question. My question is like this. I understand that the Tom, he wasn't so smart, he wasn't so crafty, and he went into a business where he really was not good at it.
It's true.
He didn't improve. Like he didn't think, well, maybe this wasn't the right. This doesn't take my potential and make it any.
Right.
It's just, I understand he's happy with his life. He's happy with whatever he gets from his, from doing this. Obviously, there are people who are poor who buy his shoes because that's what they can afford. But he didn't try, like, we raise our children saying, you do something and you try your best. But if you have potential for something, that's the area we're going to encourage you to choose as your career.
Sure.
So something like it bothered me that he didn't try to improve in his ability to make shoes.
Right. Okay, that would be a fantastic observation. I mean, it is a fantastic observation. It would be a real big kasha, except that as we're going to see as we get farther, is that he definitely grows, and he moves upward and upward and upward until he advances. Right.
I read on, so I know that he
becomes
some.
Right. So the question that we're going to have to face with this really is what's the lesson? And the lesson is mostly going to be something to do with, like, once again we'll speak about it much. But we haven't, in the way the story is written, it starts with the beginning with the two of them, and then he just talks about the Chochom for a long time. We haven't gotten to the Tam yet, and to all of his attributes really. But the main thing is going to be that we're going to see is that a person who strives to always see Hashem in everything, to always see the good in everything, to always be looking for simcha, looking for happiness, and looking to be happy where they are, then that's really one of the main ways that Hashem will help that person to grow and to elevate. And he's going to have to move forward, and he will have to make some decisions. And we see he takes office and he becomes a leader and he does all these amazing things. But at this point in the story, really the main lesson is that he's happy to see Hashem wherever he is, and he does something and he sticks with it and he perseveres. Exactly. And it's that perseverance and that trusting in Hashem and that being happy where I am right now, which is going to allow him to advance and make moves forward. Because like you're saying, Sima, I'm on the same page as you. You don't want to tell your children to become a shoemaker and in a one-room shop, and don't aspire to anything else beyond that. Obviously, right?
But even that you aspire to, you want to do it well.
Right. Yeah.
You want to do it well.
Yeah. We definitely want to be growth oriented and have a growth mindset. That's part of being us, right? Right. But I think at this point in the story, let's say the lesson so far is that the first step to that is going to be happy where I am, to thank Hashem all the time, to see Hashem everywhere I go, and to persevere and be thankful for what I have, as opposed to, really diametrically opposed to, the Chochom who finds a profession that's going to make him a lot of money that he's really good at, and he doesn't even start to practice it, and he has to go find something else already because he's worried, what's going to be? I'm not happy here, and I won't be happy here. What am I going to do? He's all over the place, right? So at this point in the story, let's hold on to Sima's question. Let's keep it with us as we go, because now when we get to talking about the Tam, it's going to be blown open, and we're going to have a lot to talk about, and we're all going to remember. Hey, let's remember Sima's kasha, and we'll figure out the answer to it. Mirz Hashem. It's a great ha'ara. Okay, let's get going here. I want to tell you guys something. Actually, I got a great maisa to tell you within our maisa over here. So, like we were just speaking about, one of the attributes of tamimus is to always be connecting to Hashem, and through that we're always seeing Hashem in everything that we do, right? And we're always thanking Hashem. We're always knowing that it's the derech of a good Breslever. of course, of any Jew, right? To be talking to Hashem, to be aware of Hashem, to be aware that there's a relationship going on, right? So sometimes we have to make a lot of effort, and sometimes things hit us in the face. Like we get smacked in the face with some kind of hashgacha pratis that is unbelievable. But even that, if we're not in the right mind frame, we can just shut it down. So listen to this story. This just happened to me tonight. It happened to me over the last month. But this amazing thing happened tonight that I still can't get over. It's I hope I can tell it over well enough. So everybody knows I have a wine company, right? I make wine. So I got an email from someone in Vancouver about a month ago. And this person said, I'm going to be coming into Toronto to visit my children, my son and his wife. And, we love your wine. Maybe we can come, and we're going to be in Niagara-on-the-Lake visiting. Do you have a restaurant? Can we have some food? Can we have a tour? What's going on? So we happen to be reworking our winery at the moment, and we're not offering tours. So I was about to respond to this person, and I looked at the name, and the last name of the person, she has a hyphenated name, stuck in my mind. I was like, this sounds familiar. So I showed it to my wife, and she says, oh, this lady is, I don't know what the exact relationship is, but it's my father's first cousin's daughter. And so I was like, wow, that's pretty wild. So I emailed the lady back, and I was like, I actually think that we might be related. And I told her the whole situation. And it turns out that when my wife's a doctor for those you don't know, when she was still in med school, her last year of med school, she did an elective in Vancouver, and she went and spent some time with this lady's father, who's now in his 90s. And she actually had a Shabbos dinner with this lady way back then, like 21 years ago. So I was like, wow, amazing. So that's not the story. So that's already exciting. So anyway, they came into town, and we went out to have dinner with them tonight, before the shiur, and so we're all sitting around having dinner. It was my family, and this lady and her husband, and her son and his family. So I'm sitting beside her son, and we're schmoozing through the dinner and talking about a few things to do with business and just interesting things. Comes out that we both have a little bit of knowledge and interest in Canadian Jewish history, which is a very fine subject, right? And so we were talking about where people came from. I'm from Winnipeg, and the immigrants that came to Winnipeg, they were offered land. If they came to Canada, they were offered land that they would be able to take a hold of and claim and start a farm. A lot of Jews came to the middle of Canada with this in mind, and most of them failed because they were not good farmers. Or in Manitoba's case, they didn't get good land. Like it was virtually impossible to be successful. So he's telling me how his family, they got a farm in Saskatchewan, and they ended up doing what they did, and then they moved to Vancouver, Saskatchewan, Vancouver. And I was like, yeah, it's really amazing. And talking about how there used to be a guide for Jewish soldiers in the Canadian Army about wherever there is in Canada where there's a Jew in a town somewhere, who they were, where they were, so you could go and get a kosher meal from them. And maybe, if you had to have a Seder, you could go to them, whatever. We're talking about all these little small towns and how there was Jews in little pockets in the middle of nowhere. As a side point, there's a town in Saskatchewan that's called Edenbridge, like Garden of Eden, Eden Bridge, Edenbridge. And the story behind the name of this town actually is that it was a Jewish town in the middle of nowhere, like in an agriculture area, and they wanted it to have a Jewish name. They wanted to call it Edenbridge, but they wouldn't let them. The government wouldn't let them. They said, no, you can't make it a Jewish name. So they named it Edenbridge, but they called it Edenbridge, right? Which is interesting. Anyway, side point. Interesting. So I tell him, something really amazing happened. This was very interesting with these small Jewish areas, that right in the first few months of COVID, 2020, in the summer of 2020, here in Canada and like in many places, you weren't able to go anywhere. Like you couldn't travel, you couldn't fly. It was when everyone was on board with restrictions, right? Back in the very beginning. Most people anyway. And so we were like, what are we going to do? There's nothing to do. It's the summertime. So we decided, my family, we're going to go on a road trip. Where are we going to go? We're going to go on a road trip to Nova Scotia on the East Coast. And we're going to rent an Airbnb. And we're just going to hang out there on the East Coast in an Airbnb. And actually, they weren't letting people even drive through New Brunswick at that time. We had to get special permission to just drive straight through New Brunswick. Anyway, so we go there. Fine. And it's a nice place. It's on the coast, and there's a big forest beside me. It was lovely. I got to spend a lot of time in the forest. It was nice. And so I go out for a drive one time to get some supplies, whatever. And I'm driving down this road out in the middle of nowhere. It's rural, completely rural. As I'm driving by, I see a cemetery which looks like there's Hebrew letters. And I look a little closer, and sure enough, it's a Jewish cemetery in the middle of nowhere called Achidas Achim. Like something, I think that's what it's called. And I was like, wow, I got to check this out. Like, how could it be? I'm in the middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia, Canada. It can't be. So I get out, and I'm looking around, and it's a cemetery. The grass is cut. Someone takes care of it around there. So I look around, I see these matzevas, big tombstones, and I'm mind blown. I start davening, I say Tukun Klali, and I'm like, wow, amazing Hashgacha Pratis Hashem that you put me to this place. I'm just driving out in the middle of nowhere. Thank you, Hashem. What Hashgacha Pratis? And so I take some pictures of the place, and I'm telling this guy beside me, our mutual interest in these little Canadian Jewish sites, I'm telling about it, and I pull out, and I'm like, take a look at these pictures, and I flip through the pictures, and I'm like, wait a second, this tombstone has your same last name. And he looks at it, and he says, this person's name is Lazarus Wenner. He says, that's my great-great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
That's my great-great-grandfather.
We're so connected, all of us. Huh?
These people that we just connected with out of the blue, and we had a dinner together, and we started talking about this interest. And I had the picture. I was at his great-great-grandfather's tomb, out in the middle of nowhere that no one ever goes to. I showed it to his father who was there. This is his great-grandfather. And they were like, they were blown away. They couldn't believe it. And I am going out of my kalim. I'm like, what? I can't believe this. This is the most amazing hashgacha pratis. Like, how could you ever have any questions that the Rebbeinu Shalom führt the Welt, runs the world, right? It's unbelievable. Like, the things that had to come together for this, it's mind-blowing. Like, it doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, of course. But what I wanted to say is that, first of all, sometimes Hashem just gives us something where he's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'm going to show you. I'm behind everything. And you'll see, which is very nice. But I just wanted to tell you, I told this to one other person, and when I told them to, they were like, oh, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
And I was like, what? That's what you, what a coincidence? That's not a coincidence. That's way, way beyond a coincidence. And the point being is that you can be faced with amazing things. You can be faced with Hashem right in front of you. But you can be a Chochom, and you can choose not to see it. You can look away. You can tie it all to nature, to just happenstance, right? And this is one of the main differences between the Chochom and the Tam. So the Tam is seeing Hashem in everything, and the Chochom is almost purposefully ignoring Hashem. Like the Tam is forging, remember, like we said last week, the Tam is forging himself into beautiful gold, and he sees Hashem in everything, and in his avodah. And the Chochom is busy creating things of false beauty that only cover up Hashem in the world. The Tam is revealing Hashem, and the Chochom is covering up Hashem. Right?
His wife's not a big supporter, so he's like the archetype of complete amunah.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, I had to bring up that story because to me it's mind blowing. Okay, so I said last time we would continue with in Rav Arush's book with the inyan of worry, which is on page 94, if you want to see it, and then we'll get into what's going on. We'll get into more. So at this point, we're in the place where the Chochom learned already how to be a goldsmith, and he's now worrying. Even though now I have the skill to depend on, even so it's not enough for me. Today this trade is in demand. Perhaps in the future a different skill will be more highly regarded. So he's worried. What am I going to do? So Rav Arush brings the Indian of worry over here. So he's saying at this point, bottom of 94, at this point in the story, he's become a master artisan with huge potential. He learned goldsmithing in 2 months, and he's super talented. He can make a ton of money here. He's got a career now. Yet before he's made any serious effort in his newly acquired trade, he's already worried about his future and prestige and income. So he thinks that why? Because he thinks that his everything that he does, his success, is only up to him. It's all up to him. And because he thinks it's all up to him, so of course he's going to worry. Right? Of course he's going to worry. If he doesn't understand that Hashem runs the world, that his success, he's done his part. He learned something amazing. He's doing it. He could do it. But he doesn't really believe that Hashem runs the world. He doesn't really have emunah. And so he thinks it's all up to me. And when everything, I tell this to people a lot, it comes up. A person who feels tremendously burdened and overwhelmed, when we feel really overwhelmed, why do we feel overwhelmed? Because we feel that it's all on me. It's tremendous. It's a big type of ego to say that everything has to come through me. If I don't decide right, if I don't do the right thing, if I don't figure things out, then it won't work, right? Not only, it's not the type of ego where a person appears to be haughty and think they're better than everyone else. It's kind of like a fear-based ego where a person worries that if I don't do it, it's not happening. So therefore, everything's up to me. So therefore, I could get tremendously overwhelmed. I could feel like the world is on my shoulders, right? Mashen Kain, someone with powerful emunah, says, okay, listen, Hashem runs the world. I'm going to try to do this today. Hopefully, and Hashem will take care of the results. We always say this, that we have to do our part, but the outcome is not up to me. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do the best I can. But the outcome is not up to me. Hashem takes care of the outcome. Leave some of the burden for Hashem. He can take it.
Put in the effort.
He can do it.
The results are up to Hashem.
He can do it. So Rav Arush says, at the bottom of this, emunah or worry? Which one do you want? That's the choice. Emunah or worry? I remember dealing with, having to deal with things that bring anxiety, and having to make a conscious decision at some point, because we face things that are scary in our lives, that are worrisome and frightening, right? And sometimes when you start to feel it, you have to make a conscious decision to say, okay, wait a second. I'm getting scared. I'm getting worried. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting upset. Whatever it is. Okay, Hashem runs the world. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. There's nothing I can do about it. Leave it to Hashem. Leave it to Hashem. And Hashem will take care of us in whatever way we're supposed to take care of us. Hashem has big shoulders. Hashem can take care of the whole universe, and we just got to leave it to Him, right? Of course, it doesn't mean that we don't do our part. It doesn't mean that we don't put in our energy and have our aspirations and do what we have to do. But it has to be from a place of realizing that I'm just doing my part, and Hashem's going to take care of the rest. People often, this is the curse of people who are overthinkers, or people who struggle with this aspect of emunah, right? Is the famous question of, how do I know how much hishtadlus I have to do and how much emunah do I have leaving it up to Hashem? Hishtadlus means the effort that I have to put in. How do I know? When have I done enough? When have I not done enough? There's no formula. How do I measure it? Because if someone's used to planning everything out and thinking everything through and always making it up to me, if I don't decide exactly the right amount of work to do, then it's not happening. Right? Such a person who always has this cheshbon, always has this calculation going in their head. It's very, 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 very difficult. So, and the answer, I hate to say it, for such a person is usually not such a good answer. But Rav Gislason brings this up one time very clearly. what is the appropriate level of hishtadlus? What's the appropriate level of effort that I have to put into something? And he says, so it's simple and it's clear. And he just says, you have to put in a normal level of hishtadlus. Not above and beyond, don't go crazy. A normal level of hishtadlus, a normal level of effort. How do I know how I should be looking for a job, looking for a shidduch? What do I do? How many resumes do I have to send out? Just be normal. Put a normal level of hishtadlus in. And then from that point, hammer emunah. Super hard. Focus on Hashem. And that Hashem, I trust Hashem. And Hashem's going to take care of me. I did my part. I love you, Hashem. Please help me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And talk to Hashem and have a relationship with Hashem. And then the things will flow. Right? But someone who doesn't have this is going to live in the realm of worry. He's going to always be worrying. It's mamish painful. Am I doing it? It's to worry. What if I haven't done enough? It's like a fear that if I haven't done enough, Hashem's a tyrant. And if I didn't figure out in my own mind exactly the right amount of effort to put in, then he's going to punish me and say, oh, you didn't get it right, so too bad, you're cut off. It's not Hashem. Right? Just do your effort. And then from the main thing is, from that place of effort, go straight to emunah, straight to bitachon, straight to hashgacha pratis, straight to seeing and talking to Hashem. Which one do we want? Which one do we want? So how can you be a person like this? You got to follow the advice of Rabbi Nachman. If you want to really be this person, it works, right? And Rav Arush talks about it all the time. And I would say one of the main thrusts of all of Rabbi Arush's stuff on this story and the Sefer is the idea of constantly being involved in tefillah and hisbodedus, always talking to Hashem, always talking to Hashem. A person, what do I always say that Rabbi Arush says? If you speak to Hashem, you'll have emunah. If you don't speak to Hashem, you don't have emunah. Don't even pretend. Don't even pretend. Right? I was speaking to a person recently who found himself starting a relationship with a certain lady, and the way the relationship was going is that it got a little bit intense, and they're both from divorced families, so that's you have to bring people together. It's not so simple, and so the lady said, "I need some space. We need to just slow this down. It's not. I need to have some space." And so this person decided that, you know what, I better go and talk to her, and knock on her door on Shabbos and tell her, you know, I just wanted to say hi. I'm thinking about you, whatever. And I was like, don't go. Don't go. You got to give some space. She wants space. Give her space. Anyway, I went, and she was very upset. And she's like, this is exactly what I was worried about, so on and so forth. The next day, the person comes to me and says, I think I'm going to write her a letter. A big long letter explaining everything and telling her everything that I feel and why this and why that and how I think, you know, she's wrong and whatever. And I was like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. This is not space. You got to give space. But the main thing is really, why am I telling you this? This person is a sweet, sweet, sweet Jew, a very, very loving, caring person, an awesome person. But one of the aspects over here, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's I feel like if I don't do something now, right, then it's not going to happen. I'm going to miss my chance. It's not going to work. It's absolutely being withdrawn from the realm of emunah. And so one of the things I said to this person, which is a very interesting, sometimes it works this way, is what if you're going to give in to this pull that you have, this yetzer that you have, that I must do something, right? That's not called hishtadlus. That's not effort. It's actually the opposite. It's not putting in effort. It's giving in to my yetzer. The effort that you have to put in is to hold back. You have to do your hishtadlus in having gevura to hold back over here. That's effort for you. It's not effort for you to just give in and keep going, right? Like I said, this person is a beautiful, sweet, wonderful man, a special, special person. And I don't want to sound like I'm saying negative things about him. But you hear what I'm saying? There's a different cheshbon. What is the effort for me? What is my hishtadlus in this? And how do I figure these things out? There's two things about hisbodedus that are going to help a person through this. First of all, I can do what Rav Arush is talking about here. One second. He uses a few self words. One is self-composure, and the other is when you figure things out about yourself. What's it called? Assessment, self-assessment, and self-composure. So hisbodedus helps a person with this. I look at myself, I look deeply, and I think, what am I really doing here? Hashem, help me to understand. What is my challenge? What is my test? Where do I need to put in effort over here? That's one way it helps. And it enables a person to compose themselves, to step back, and to think, and to contemplate, and to figure things out, so I don't just rush into things. Is the second thing. And the third thing is by engaging in speaking to Hashem on a regular basis, I am always connected to Hashem. I'm constantly connected to Hashem. And when I'm constantly connected to Hashem, I live like I'm constantly connected to Hashem. I live with emunah, and then I won't feel the burden of anxiety and overwhelmingness and all of those things that I can only accomplish if me does exactly what I need to do, and if I don't do it, then it's never going to happen, and then I'll fail and everything. It's a terrible, stressful, difficult life to live, right? Constantly speaking to Hashem, constantly thinking about Hashem, and engaging in this type of discussion and self-assessment and self-composure is a gift to be able to live a sweet life. Remember what else Rav Arush says? There's an existence before a person has emunah, and there's a different existence after a person has emunah. It's like living in Gan Eden. It's the Gan HaEmunah. So we should all learn. We should all learn from this. So he says like this. There's a few good mashalim and stories that he gives over here. So, worrying too much about what's going to be in the future, he says, is like, imagine if you have a person, I don't think it's still Detroit anyway, I don't think they have such an auto industry there anymore, but he says, lack of emunah, this is page 96, lack of emunah is like a person on a Detroit auto assembly line worrying about the future of diesel engines. Right? You're working on the assembly line. It's not your job to be worrying how the industry is gonna play out. In fact, if you're thinking about this all day long, he says, then you're probably not doing your actual job really well, because you're thinking about things that you have no business thinking about. Right? It's not something you should be thinking about. So if we realize that Hashem is running everything, Hashem runs the world, Hashem's putting us in the right direction, we can focus and just do the work that we're supposed to do today. Do my effort today, focus on today, be happy today, be thankful today, and do my job. So he brings this story from Rabbi Nachman that he calls greasing the wheels over here. So I'm going to give it over just in my own words, because it'll go better that way. Stories like this. There's a villager, guy who lives in a village, who he has a textile shop. He sells fabric and makes clothing and whatnot. And every once in a while, he goes to the big city in order to get his supplies, his fabric. So he takes his old wagon, to the big city, goes to the fabric dealer, the wholesaler, and he loads his wagon up heavy with fabric. And he starts to head back home, and as he's going, his wheels are creaking, and it's slow, and it's hard for the horses to pull. So he stops, and he runs back to the shop, and he tells the guy, my wheels are having a lot of trouble. They're really squeaky and they're not moving, and it's very hard to get the stuff back. So the wholesaler says, don't worry. Here, I'll get some grease, some axle grease. We'll stick it in your, probably wheel bearings, and make them spin properly, and you'll get home. It'll be all good, and you'll get home safe. So he does that, and he starts heading home. It's spinning nicely, no noise. He's going fast. Gewaldig. So as he gets close to his town, close to home, his friend, who is also a different kind of merchant, is riding along with his wagon, and he sees his friend coming, and he's like, "Whoa, what happened to your wagon? It's not squeaking, you're moving so fast. This is amazing. How did you do this?" And he said, my wholesale fabric supplier, he gave me some grease for my wheels. He's got the grease, and he gave it from me, and since then, I can go. It's amazing. I'm going so fast. And so this Chochom, for real, he says, amazing. And he zooms off, makes a beeline straight for the fabric wholesaler. So he goes to the fabric wholesaler and he says to him, like, hey, I want some, will you give me some grease for my wheel? And the guy's like, what? What are you talking about? What are you doing here? He says, oh, my friend, the fabric shop owner, he told me that you gave him grease for his wheels. So the wholesaler says to him, listen, I'm not a grease salesman, okay? I don't sell grease. I don't give away grease. This guy is one of my best customers, and I want him to be successful. When he sells, I do well also. So I'm giving him what he needs to be able to go and do his job to sell. So I gave him grease for wheels. But you don't come to me. I'm not a grease person. I'm not a grease salesman. Go to a wagon shop. I don't know, garage, whatever they were called back then. The wagon repair guy and get grease for your wheels. Don't come to me. That's the story. So Rabbi Nachman told this story to someone who came to him asking him for a bracha, for that he should have a very good livelihood, for a big parnasa. So Rabbi Nachman said to him, my students and my followers, they are people who their only desire is to do Ratzon Hashem, is to do the will of Hashem, and to learn and to daven and to do acts of kindness and mitzvahs, and to be close to me and close to Hashem. So I give them tremendous blessings that they should have big parnasa, because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the world. But you, I can't give a blessing to, because you're not doing your job. If you want to do your job, then I'll bless you that you should have everything you need. But Rabbi Nachman said to him, I'm not a grease dealer. Don't come to me for grease for your wheels. Right? So this is what does this have to do with what we're talking about over here? A person, he makes such an incredibly important point over here. This is the next point that we're getting to over here. That a person has to be focused on knowing, why am I here? Why did Hashem put me here in this world? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose in life? Rabbi Arush says numerous times, if I'm not fulfilling my purpose in life, if I'm not working towards the purpose in my life, then it's impossible for me to be happy. It's impossible for me to feel fulfilled. It won't work if I'm not working towards fulfilling my life's purpose. So if a person is working towards their life's purpose, their livelihood is kind of a secondary concern. First of all, if they're really working towards their life purpose, then what they need will flow. But even if it doesn't, a person has fulfillment and feels good about themselves, feels positive about life, because I'm working towards something special, something meaningful, right? Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, right? Everybody knows this book? Totally amazing. We need meaning. We need to be working for something that is important, that has meaning to us, that has fulfillment to us. So if I'm doing this, then I don't have to be worried about what do people think of me. The Chochom is always worried. Listen to this line that we said a few times. From Rav Kivak. Tam says, Kol ha-chochmas sheba'olam hu. The essence of all of these of the wisdom, the quote unquote wisdom, or lack of wisdom of the Chochom in the world is shemavakesh livnois yishus atzmoi shekulam yedu mimenu. Barash gadol is that everything I do should be to make me look great, so that everybody knows about me, with a lot of noise, with a lot of show. Because if I don't feel that I'm doing something that's meaningful, that's purposeful, that I'm fulfilling my purpose, of course I'm going to tie everything to money, to success, to the way I look, to my pointy shoes and fancy pants, right? That's what it's going to be. So another aspect of it, it's not only that I should work on doing the right thing and fulfilling my purpose, so that Hashem will give me parnasa and give me the tools that I need. That's one thing, but it's also that this is what's going to make a person feel good about themselves. I'm going to feel positive and fulfilled, like I'm doing something with my life, right? It's so important and so amazing. I wrote down here on this idea that we have to get on the wave of Ratzon Hashem. I know I talk about this a lot. We have to ride the wave of Ratzon Hashem. Am I trying to do something in the world that Hashem put me here for? Or am I just trying to fight against it? and only look for fame. So Rav Arush says now over here, a little farther down, imagine what he could be doing amazing. He could be happy. He could be enjoying life. He could have built a prestigious customer following and made a lot of money. But no, he opted to worry about the future. He saw the world through dark-colored glasses of emunah deficiency. This guy in particular, he has the tools to be successful, but he just can't. He can't see positivity and happiness. He's got to be worrying about the future. So he says also over here, another mashal that my wife really liked. He says like this, middle of page 99. Why be concerned about future problems? With emunah, we know that if Hashem gives us a problem in the future, He will also give us the tools to deal with that problem. But today, we don't have the problem, so we don't need the tools. Who is silly enough to carry a car jack when riding the bus or train to work? Imagine you're on the subway and you see a guy carrying a car jack with him to pump up a car, to lift it up, to change the tire. And you say to the guy, oh, what happened? Are you going to fix your car? And he's like, no. This is just the way I get to work every day. But what if I need to change the tire? What if something happens? And you look at this guy like, what are you, crazy? First of all, you can't lift up a train with your little car jack. And it's not your job. Your transportation is taken care of already. What are you carrying this around for? You don't need it. The Chochom is making up things to worry about that don't exist. Everything's great for him right now. He could be happy. He could be successful. But he's choosing to carry a car jack with him on the subway, like a crazy person. This is what's going on. Listen to this. We might laugh at the example above, but many of us are proverbial worriers who carry heavy car jacks of woe in our emotional briefcases when we're not even driving a car. When do we worry about things that are not even in our purvey? When do we start to think about worries in the future that are not even on the horizon for us? But we put them there, we take them there. Wild. So the next section in Rav Arush is called The Big Lie. You guys read this one? So what's the big lie? Let's see. So he says that the concept of happiness, of living happily ever after, is a fantasy if a person doesn't have emunah. It's not going to happen. A person cannot be satisfied with his life no matter what, cannot be happy no matter what, unless he has satisfaction with his life, unless he's sameach b'chelkoi. And not only that, he says, a person cannot possibly be satisfied with his lot in life without emunah, particularly the emunah that everything comes from Hashem and that everything is for the best. He says, a person who is not happy with his lot in life cannot possibly be a person of upright character. The big lie, what's the big lie? Is that it's possible to be a person of upright character without emunah. It's possible to be a person of upright character without emunah. As we see in the following examples. He gives two stories, examples about this. What do we mean? The point of these stories is to tell us that emunah is what enables us to be good and what enables us to be happy with our lot in life. First story is about Aristotle. I've heard this story told about someone else. Doesn't really matter who it's about. Whichever one is true is good. But let's hear it. So, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, spoke much about the lofty character traits of humility, mercy, decency, and refinement. So one time, his students were arguing about something, and they couldn't remember what Aristotle said, according to this girsa. So they went to his house to ask him. And when they got to the doorway, they saw the door was already open, so they decided to walk in and see what was going on. And they caught him, in the words of the book over here, they saw their teacher on the floor in the middle of a disdainful act that we prefer not to describe in this book or in this shiur. So the students were shocked, and they said, our teacher, haven't you told us many times that this type of behavior is disdainful, is beneath us? What are you doing? So he said, why are you so surprised? Must a teacher of geometry have a head that's shaped like a right triangle? Of course not. In like manner, a philosophy teacher need not live by everything he teaches. In the academy, we lecture. At home, we live. This is the state. This is about Aristotle. A second statement, a second story, is about a 12th century bishop who was famous for having an impeccable character, and especially for being humble. And this bishop ended up being connected in some way to the Rambam. And so he invited the Rambam to come and speak with him about something, and the Rambam went. And so he went in, and he saw that really it was pretty wild. It was pretty amazing, and he was so nice and friendly, and he behaved in such a crazy. The bishop received the Rambam magnanimously and spoke to the. I don't even remember what that means. Spoke to the Rambam with utmost respect. The Rambam was perplexed. Is it possible for a person without Torah and true Emunah to be genuinely humble? So he was worried. The Rambam was like, "What, am I missing something over here? He seems to be an awesome guy and humble and upright. What's going on?" Just as the Rambam was about to leave, this is page 101, by the way, the bishop could no longer contain himself. "So, Rabbi, what do you have to say about my humility?" The Rambam breathed a sigh of relief. The bishop was a great actor, but his humility was far from genuine. It was merely a ploy for him to command more admiration and respect. Right? So, what's the big lie? The big lie is it's all an act. And a person who requires affirmation of their level of humility is someone who doesn't have emunah, who's broken, and who's fragile, and is insecure. This is not a person of emunah. This is not a person of upright character traits. They're doing these things only to be praised, only to be lifted up, because of their insecure nature to begin with. Right? This is not a positive trait. So he says something very, very powerful here, and this is a point that I think is important to address. Page 102 at the top. Many people ask, why even talk about politicians? He spoke about politicians before this. There are so-called religious people and even rabbis that have been exposed as thieves and perverts with unthinkably corrupt character. Sad but true, such quote-unquote religious people and rabbis lack emunah. Their religion or their clerical appointment is simply a means for them to take advantage of others and to acquire money, respect, or whatever they're seeking, and nothing else. Remember this rule. It's like this. We've seen this many times. Rabbi Nachman speaks about this, right? What do we always say? Efshar liyos Talmud Chochom v'Rasha Gamor. It's possible to be a brilliant scholar and a complete Rasha, completely evil. Right? Just because you've decided that you're religious, just because you maybe got a certain title, someone decided to call you rabbi, right? That does not make the person. You can have a person who dresses the part, who speaks the right words, looks like they fit in the right place, and they can be a disaster. They can be the words he used, I'll use them, they can be exposed as thieves and perverts. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. But this happens. You know, it always reminds me, I'm always drawn back to, Rabbi Nachman says that one of the most important traits of a leader is that they have to be humble, they have to have humility. And you can tell, sometimes you meet people in high positions of religious authority, and just you speak to them for a short time, and you can see that there's a tremendous ego, and there's the need to rule and the need to have authority. And Rabbi Nachman says, run away from such people. That's not a leader. That's not someone you should follow. So it's a delicate balance, and unfortunately, the uniform does not tell us the whole story all the time, right? So a person who cultivates a real deep personal relationship with Hashem, who has real emunah, who talks to Hashem, who has a relationship with Hashem, a connection to Hashem, this is the person who is going to be happy with their life, who's going to be on the right track, who's going to be fulfilling their purpose. not like these other people who are ruining countless lives and doing terrible things. He says, remember this rule. As long as a person is disconnected from his mission in life, he can't be happy with his lot in life. It's not possible. If you're disconnected from your mission in life, you cannot be happy with your lot in life. Why? If he's not performing his mission in life, then whatever he's doing is not his real lot in life. So he can't be happy with it. In other words, Hashem made the world that you have a mission. And when you do your mission, when you're working on your mission, you're going to feel good about it. You're going to be happy with your lot in life. Why? Because it's your lot. That's you being you. That's you doing what you're supposed to be doing. Kol zman that you're trying to be something else, or that you're ignoring that, and you're looking at, this is one of the worst things about jealousy. I'm looking at other people and I'm jealous of them. So I try to start to be like them. That's not you being you. That's you trying to put on a costume and be an actor. That's the big lie. You're being someone else. So you'll never be happy with your lot in life if you're trying to be someone else that you're not. It's so simple, but it's so powerful and so true. Without happiness with their lot in life, a person harbors constant doubts about whatever he's doing and constantly desires to be somewhere else, doing something else, or married to someone else. Oy vavoy. One of the things I always ask people who are talking about divorce, I always ask them in the beginning, is there another person in the picture? Is there anyone else in the picture? Because it's very often when a person sees another person in the picture that they have this idea that I need to be married to that person. If only I was married to that person, then things would be different, things would be better, and things would work out. And they have a tendency to want to get away from the person that they're with. It's a terrible situation to be in, and I have literally never seen it work out this way, because that person has not fixed what the problems that they had from the previous relationship, and now they're going to go into a new relationship, and the same things are going to repeat, and it's going to be bad. Most of the time, right? So a person who's not happy with their lot in life is always looking elsewhere. So we talked a few times tonight about this idea of a person fulfilling their purpose and being who they're supposed to be in the world. So I just want to speak about this for a minute or two. It can sound daunting, can maybe sound a little bit unrealistic even to some people. What do you mean? There's a single purpose for me? There's one thing that I have to do, and I have to figure out what that is, and I have to start doing it? Like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to possibly figure this out? So sometimes it is like this. Sometimes a person has one purpose. There's one thing they need to do, right? The famous statement of the Baal Shem Tov, the Lubavitchers like to say, is that it's possible that the whole reason that a person came down for a reincarnation is they had one tikkun left, and that one tikkun was just to do a tova gashmis for another Jew, a physical favor, like a favor in the physical world. Maybe you just needed to help shovel this guy's walk. Maybe you needed to help the old lady across the street. Whatever, one little thing, that could be your entire tikkun, right? Sometimes it's like that. Yeah, sometimes you're supposed to become, someone who does something amazing. Like there's a lady who got all these Jews out of Syria. Can't remember what her name is, but totally amazing. Maybe you were one of these people that hid Jews during the Holocaust. I don't know. There's all kinds of amazing things that people do. Maybe sometimes that's it. There's a tremendously fantastic Nesivo Shalom in Parshas Re'eh that speaks about this inyan. The Arizal tells us that every single Jew has a certain tikkun and yud purpose in the world. And it's different for every person. And one person cannot take care of another person's job over here. We have to do our own tikkun, our own job, find our own purpose in the world. And he gives us the answer to how we figure out what this is. And it doesn't have to be pointing us towards a certain job or a certain event. That's not necessarily what it means. But he says that the main thing is that we have to look around and contemplate. He doesn't say talk to Hashem, but I'm going to add that in. And talk to Hashem about everything that we see that Hashem gives us. What are the talents that Hashem has given me? Those are my tools, right? What are the challenges that Hashem gave us? Those point me in the different direction, the things I got to get away from. Who are the people that Hashem has put me together with? Why are we together? What can we do together? Right? And by looking around the world and seeing everything, Parshas Re'eh, look around the world, look for what are your brachas, what are your blessings. Now you can start to see, okay, I see I have a talent for, let's say a person has a talent for communication, right? Some people are not social and they don't like to talk to people, but they're really good with organization and figuring out how to do things in the right way. You know, an organization that helps people, for example, needs a person who goes out and talks to people and finds them and sees who needs help, makes connections, right? Brings people together. That could be one person in such an organization. But you know what else that organization needs? It needs the guy who sits in the back, who doesn't really connect so well socially with people, but he knows how to organize things, and she knows how to give exactly what that person needs. She can look at the person and say, oh, this person needs help, and we got to do it. And they'll figure out how to do it, how to get those things to that person. We all have different talents, and if we can look at our talents, we can now start to see what my purpose is. But if you have someone who has a tremendous talent for, a person just came to my mind because I was listening to him today, is Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, right?
He's amazing.
What a speaker. What a speaker, right? Captivating speaker. So I think we can all agree, we don't have to be too wise to agree that speaking and inspiring people is for sure, if not his purpose period, is one of his main purposes in the world, right? So imagine if he never went down that path and he was just a nebbisha guy who was one of these guys who's 30 years old, sitting in his parents' basement playing video games, spilling pizza down his white undershirt, right? And sitting behind the computer and making mean comments to people, hiding behind the anonymity of his parents' basement, right? What if he was such a person? And he just through the way of life, he never figured out that he had a talent. Rabbi YY was in Lubavitch Yeshiva, and probably from a young age, people started encouraging him and saying, hey, you got something, right? You got to use this. And as he got older, it probably just kept going because he's in such an environment that is leading him towards his ultimate purpose. And so he developed and became Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, who's so amazing and inspiring to so many people, right? But what if he never did that? What if you were a guy who weren't in that environment, but you still have such a talent, or something like that? You have some type of talent. If a person doesn't step back and look at themselves and think about their good points, like Rabbi Nachman says, what are my talents? What are my abilities? What can I do? Now I can start to find what Hashem put me here. Now, one more thing. Imagine, how would Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson feel sitting in that basement? How would he feel about his life? Would he be happy? He's not being him. He's not using those things that Hashem gave him to fulfill his ultimate purpose. He'll never be happy with his lot in life because he's not doing something meaningful. He's not achieving what Hashem gave him the ability to achieve. This is one of the beautiful and important points that Rabbi Arush brings over here. So fantastic. So we're running out of time here. I want to just speak about the next thing that we're going to come on to over here is let's just read the English part of the story and speak for 2 minutes about the doctor. Afterwards, so now he's been a goldsmith, he's been a Steinschneider, a stone cutter, right? And he could mamish be making crowns for the royal family now. This ultra talented guy with these 2 skills, but he can't take it. He's like, no, this is not good. Afterwards, he pondered philosophically. Even though I have 2 trades Who knows if both of them might fall out of demand? Better that I learn a trade that will always be important. He reasoned, according to his understanding and philosophy, that he should learn to be a doctor, the medical profession, which is always needed and important. So first of all, so he's going to become a doctor. Okay. So first of all, Rav Arush says, bottom of page 103, you might think, what's wrong with learning to be a doctor? Medicine is truly a profession that is always in demand. Rav Arush says, you're right. Right. If the clever one would have sincerely composed himself, in other words, if he would have engaged in true self-assessment while connecting to Hashem, he'd have arrived at this conclusion long ago, before learning to be a goldsmith and a gem cutter. But now his decision to learn medicine is just as random as his previous decisions. If he would have stood back, he says this earlier on, and contemplated, who am I? What should I be doing in the world? What's my purpose? What does Hashem want from me? How can I properly... Will this be something that will make me feel fulfilled? Do I feel like this is purposeful and meaningful to me to do this? He wouldn't have become a goldsmith. He wouldn't have become a gem cutter. He would have gone for something like being a doctor, where if he had the right intention of helping people, taking care of people, giving people the ability to live, like there's a lot of positive things about this.
I guess
right?
I got to cancel my law school application.
Maybe, right? But he didn't do this. He's just bouncing back and forth. He's never composing himself. He's never assessing himself, and he's never connecting to Hashem and meaning and purpose in his life. So he's bouncing all around. Any one of these professions could be a noble pursuit, could be something good to do. But when he's just flying around without guidance from himself, from those who are wiser than him, and from Hashem, there's nothing. And he's never going to be happy. He's once again never going to be happy. So, just to finish off here, we'll talk about the Indian of being a doctor for a second. It happens to be that in the writings of Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson, there's a particularly negative view of doctors. And it's something that there's a lot to understand about it. Especially back in those days, like talking a couple hundred years ago, doctors really did not, for a large portion of the time, had no idea what they were doing. And they would try different things, and there were certain things that were in fashion that sometimes worked and didn't work. And so, Rabbi Nachman said things like Hashem makes it that there's different herbs in the world, and that certain herbs have a power, right? But he said it's Hashem that has the power, and he gives it to the herbs. And if a doctor would say Hashem's going to heal someone, and I'm just a messenger, and the herb is just a messenger, mm-hmm. It's a different story. Mm-hmm. But instead, the doctors, they think this, they think that. My wife's a doctor. I go to doctors. I'm not saying in such a negative way over here, right? but it's a different way of thinking about things. And I personally, this is my personal belief, is that interestingly, Rabbi Nachman was also pro-vaccine in a certain way. No, so it happened to be, that's a joke by the way, sort of. In his time, there was the smallpox was around, and they had just developed the vaccine for smallpox, and the vaccine for smallpox worked, like it just worked, right? So Rabbi Nachman said, you got to take the vaccine for smallpox. You see, it's something, it's medicine, and it works, so you have to take it, right? It's my belief that if Rabbi Nachman is around now, and he knew about penicillin, he wouldn't be telling people, don't go to doctors. Oh, you have an infection, don't die. Instead, go get penicillin. It's a good idea. Meaning, this is my own view of it, no one else's, just me, is that Rabbi Nachman would say, if there's something in medicine that we see, it works and it's good, so you could use it. But he would always qualify it with, I'm making this up, me, that it's only if you realize that the doctor and the medicine and everything leading up to it is just a messenger for the refuah, the healing that's coming from Hashem. Right? That should always be, and you see, if you're this person that we're talking about over here, who lives like this, that's going to be your default level of thinking for everything in the world. Right? So Rav Kivak says that the one of the particular dangers of being a doctor that follows along all of the downfalls of the Chochom, and that brings him to this level, which is an even further descent, right, of the Chochom, is that you see, a doctor is very used to, especially nowadays when many things work, they're very used to having people come to them, and something's wrong. Here, I fixed it. Here, oh, you have an infection? Here's penicillin. Oh, you have some type of terrible inflammation that you can't walk? Here's some steroids. They're going to remove that inflammation. Oh, you have, I don't know, make stuff up. There's a very big potential and a tendency for such a person to have this feeling like I heal people. I take care of people. I heal people. Right? And they don't have to think about Hashem because they know, oh, if there's this problem, I give this. If there's this problem, I give this. And we see that it works. Right? So there's a huge tendency for such a person to cut Hashem out of the picture in a bigger way than just a goldsmith or a gem cutter. Right? You know, people sometimes say that there's a thing related to certain types of doctors, maybe surgeons, I don't know, that they have what's called a God complex, right? Where they think, tremendous ego, such a thing. You should know, everybody should know, there's many, many good, amazing doctors out there who are wonderful people, caring people. There's many from religious doctors who are emunah-dik people, and you should know my wife, before she's doing things that are difficult in particular, she davens before giving epidurals to ladies. She thinks, Hashem, please make this work, especially when they're hard. And she's like, and she's experienced miracles. Literally, miracles happen in front of her, and she's crying to Hashem sometimes in the middle of working as a doctor. There's fantastic doctors out there, but there's a potential, more so than in other positions, to develop a God complex and to develop a feeling, a sense that I do it. It's me. Exactly what we've been saying all the time over here. That the Chochom wants to show, look at me. Look what I can do. Look at my abilities. I want everybody to see. That's why he refused to marry in his first town, because he has to go somewhere else so more people can see him and know him. And then he can come back to his place and show people how great he is. Right? It's all about showing my own greatness, my own ego in front of everybody else. And so a doctor, listen, how could it not be this way? You're saving people. You're healing people's illnesses. What a power. What an ability, right? But along with that power and that ability and that gift is a tendency to be taken away from emunah. So this is why Rav Kivak says it's a particular downfall for the Chochom over here. By this point, he's cut Hashem out. He's not thinking about Hashem at all. He's just the king of the world. And he believes that he's just going higher and higher and showing everybody how great he is and how it's all about him. It's all about his ego. So just to wrap up, guys, let's remember the main points over here, and they're continuing to build as we learn the story. Are that we need to always be in a state of self-assessment and what's the second one? Self-composure, hisboinenus, contemplation, talking to Hashem, always connecting to Hashem, always being with Hashem, always looking for hashgacha pratis, divine providence, always living with hashgacha pratis, and always asking myself, what does Hashem want from me right now? Being happy where I am because this is where Hashem put me, and allowing Hashem to guide me to my next stage without having to push myself because I'm not happy where I am. Appreciate and thank Hashem for all of our gifts. Look at my gifts and my abilities and try to understand what they are and therefore be able to use them in fulfilling my purpose, because that's why Hashem gave me those gifts, so I can do something in the world. And we should remember what he said, that only a person who is really working towards fulfilling their purpose will feel happy. Will feel happy with their lot in life. Will be samech bechalkai. Will be able to keep moving forward. We always gotta be, the tam is always plugged into Hashem. And the Chochom is always trying to conceal more and more of Hashem in the world. Whew. That's it for today, guys. Thank you, everybody. Any questions or comments?
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and you're not the first person to bring this up.
Okay.
So Vered's asking, just in case you didn't hear, that we've heard stories before that people finish a certain tikkun and then they die, and then that's it. So should we be afraid that we're gonna actually, if we work too hard towards fulfilling our purpose, maybe Hashem will say, "Great work, you're done. Let's go." Okay, so let's step back a few paces from that and look at it for a second. Let's say that really happened. Let's say you really fulfilled your purpose, and then it's time for you to move on. That also means that in the world of Hashgacha Pratis and everything, that everyone else in your life also has to be ready. It has to be the right thing for them for you to move on. And everyone who knows you, and every interaction that you ever had, this is the amazing brilliance of the web of Hashgacha Pratis, of Divine Providence, right? Like everything has to work out exactly, completely for every person in the world for such a thing to happen. So it could be, and if it would happen, then that would be Ratzon Hashem, and that would be what's right for you and everyone else around you, and it would be fantastic, right? But having said that, very, very, barring past life rectifications that are an unfortunate situation that happened recently, is that a baby will pass away as an infant, as a young, maybe even only being around for a few hours. And one of the things that people have said about such situations is that the soul of this baby that came into existence was so high, was near perfect, and had one tiny little tikkun that had to happen. Maybe they just needed to be conceived in holiness. Maybe they just needed to be born and to drink milk from a holy Jewish mother, and that was it. We've seen these stories before, right? And that could be it could be such a thing, right? Such a tikkun could be. But for the most part, normal people who live normal lives, these stories are amazing, but they're the interesting stories because they're big, extreme stories. For most of us, our life's purpose is something that we work towards building our whole lives. And it's not something that we just all of a sudden I did my purpose, and I'm done. Our purpose for most of us is to build ourselves and to work through the issues that we need to work through, to fix the midos that we have to fix, to go and move closer and closer towards a level of shleimus and perfection. And so we can try as hard as we want. As hard as we should try, as hard as we can. In Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get as close as we can. And if we reach it, and we perfected ourselves, we did that final tikkun, we did that final rectification, and it's time for us to leave, it'll be the right thing for us. It'll be the right thing for everyone around us. It'll be perfect. Right? We're going to hang up now, guys. Thanks for everyone for joining. The shiur will be on Wednesday in Likutei Moharan. There's no holidays or anything, right? Oh, wait a minute.
Thursday.
That's Thursday night or Thursday day?
Thursday night.
Okay, so Wednesday night the shiur will be on. Mitzvah Hashem. Have a great week, everybody. All the best.